Hello, everyone. My name is Muslima, and I'm from Ghana. Welcome to the 70th Commission on the Status of Women, CSW 70. We are working together to make sure laws are fair for every girl and that our voices are heard when decisions are made.
Hello everyone, my name is Habiba and I am also from Ghana. Welcome to our special event today, Girls Roadmaps to Justice.
We are so happy you are here with us today.
Today is about girls, our voices, our experiences, and our solutions.
Across the world, many girls face barriers when they try to seek safety or justice.
Sometimes systems are confusing, sometimes they are unsafe, and sometimes girls are simply not heard.
But today is different.
Today, girls are not just sharing problems, we are sharing solutions.
Let us. This event is organized by Global Girls Globe.
Now, it is our honor to welcome a strong leader who believes deeply in girls, Crystal Sprague.
Krista Sprague is the executive director of Global Girls Globe.
She is a strong advocate for girls and women around the world.
She has worked for more than 16 years in organizations that support young people.
She has a background in social work and has led programs in the United States and internationally.
Krista believes in brave leadership.
Please join us in warmly welcoming Crystal Sprague.
Well, thank you for that very warm welcome. Hi, everyone. I'm Crystal. I'm the CEO at Global Girls Glow, as Habiba and Miss Seema said. It is my delight to welcome you today. And wherever you are, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you're calling in from today. It's really a privilege to welcome you to this CSW 70. As you know and have seen on the screen, the title of our event today is Girls Roadmaps to Justice, a global girl-led showcase on barrier-free access to safety and support. This year, for CSW 70, we're centered on strengthening access to justice for women and girls and advancing their meaningful participation in decision-making systems. As the global community gathers to advance access to justice, we have to pause and ask, access for who? Access how? And access designed by whom? Because as a Girls Forward organization, we know and understand that for millions of adolescent girls, justice exists in principle, but not always in practice. Girls today occupy a fragile place in our systems, are often too old for child protection, too young to be taken seriously in adult spaces, too often dismissed, too often doubted, too often unheard. Reporting pathways can feel unsafe, institutions can feel intimidating, processes can feel opaque, and yet we expect girls to navigate them anyway and often alone. And that's justice gap. At Global Girls Glow, we believe something very different. We believe girls are not passive recipients of protection. They're thinkers, they're analysts, they're leaders. Through safe spaces, mentorship, and international development, leadership development, we support girls to build not only knowledge, but also agency. Because access to justice is not about laws and policies, it's also about confidence and voice. It's about the ability to recognize harm, to name it, to seek support safely, and then to do something about it so that other people don't have to experience it later. This is where social emotional learning comes in. And for those of you who don't know, it's the basis of all of our programming here at Global Glow. It builds conditions that make external justice pathways usable because it strengthens an individual's courage, communication, critical thinking, and resilience. My colleague Adrienne Warren will speak more about this during the expert session. She'll share how SEL directly strengthens girls' access to justice across all contexts. Today's event really represents a powerful shift from speaking about girls to listening to girls. Through their roadmap to justice, girls have mapped what happens when they seek help, where systems work, where they fail, and what must change. These are not abstract reflections. They're grounded, practical recommendations. They're blueprints, and blueprints are meant to build something better. We're honored, so honored today to be joined by our adolescent girl leaders. There are 5 of them today. If you want to wave at us when I say your name, you're very welcome to do that. Alima is from South Sudan and our partner at Women Relief Aid. Chandini is from Holy Cross International in India. Christiana is from Hafai in Nigeria. Dee Rani is from Views in India. And Drusilla is from CCCYD in Zambia. And of course, you have already met Habiba and Muslima. We're so honored to have their expertise and creative energy to put together this wonderful program for us today. We're also joined by thematic experts, some really, really incredible voices. Miss Mariam Faroukhi is the CEO of iPro Bono. Miss Aksa Khan is the Senior Gender Advisor for CARE International. Miss Garima Sharma is International Consultant on Gender, Humanitarian, and Climate Justice. And then, of course, Miss Adrienne Warren, our very own Vice President of Programs here at Global Girls Club. We're also, last but definitely not least, honored to have Ms. Inez Cooperschmidt joining today. She's the founder partner at Inkwell Education Law in the United States, and she'll conclude our event with some closing reflections and a forward-looking call to action. Thank you, everyone, for being here, but not just for being here, for participating and believing with us that that girls deserve more of a voice in all conversations, especially ones that involve them. Girls are not beneficiaries waiting at the margins of reform. Here and everywhere, they're partners in designing it. So I invite all of you to listen with humility, to listen with intention, to listen with a readiness to act, and let us move beyond acknowledging justice gaps. Let us learn from this roadmap that we're about to hear today, and build systems worthy of girls. So it's my very big honor to open this CSW 70 parallel event. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Krista, for your inspiring words.
Now comes our favorite part, the girl-led roadmap.
Girls from different countries has created hand-drawn roadmaps.
These roadmaps show a challenge girls face, what happens now, what should happen, and what needs to change.
Let us proudly introduce our roadmap presenters.
From Nigeria, Christiana from Hafan. From India, Rani from Views. From Sudan, Alima from WRA. From Zambia, Drasila from CCCYD. From India, Chandini from Holy Cross. And from Ghana, Habiba and Muslima.
Each of them will share their roadmap to justice.
Let's listen carefully. Let's learn from them. Let's honor their courage.
Hello everyone, my name is Zalima. Today I want to talk about the roadmap to justice. I'm from South Sudan. Today I want to talk about the roadmap to justice and the problem of sexual exploitation in our community. In many communities in South Sudan, including mine, girls face the problem of sexual exploitation. If I talk about sexual exploitation, I mean the actual or the attempt abuse in a position of vulnerability, differential power, or trust for sexual purposes. There are reasons as to why girls are faced with such challenges. One of the reasons is poverty. Some girls and their family do not have enough food or money. Because of this, girls are pressured to exchange sex for money, food, or for support. Sometimes girls do this not just to help themselves, but to help their families to survive. That's the problem of conflict. South Sudan has experienced many years of conflict. During these difficult times, women and the girls become more vulnerable. Some powerful people and the armed group will take advantage of them. Girls who live, this will make girls to be displaced in the settlement camp, of which if they're displaced in the settlement camp, you see that they're at a higher risk of violence. There is also gender inequality. In many communities, men have more power than women, and girls are treated less advantage than boys. This will lead to the harmful practices like child marriage and forced marriage, which at times will make the girls to be more vulnerable. Another problem is the laws in South Sudan here is always not strongly enforced. Sometimes the police and the courts are not easily to reach, and some cases are handled by traditional system which favor the men. Because of this, many offenders will go unpunished, and they believe they'll just get off with that. Of course, they'll get off with that because it is handled by the traditional system, of which it will favor the men. These are the reasons as to why girls in my communities face the problem of sexual exploitation. So when girls experience abuse, many challenges make it hard for them to speak it out. The example of this thing, we have the fear of stigma. Girls worry that the community will blame them for or judge them for what they have done. Of course, they'll believe that if they say this, the people around them or in the community will blame them or judge them. They also fear gossip. Girls worry that if they tell someone, the story will spread and harm her reputation. So that is the fear of gossip. Some girls do not trust others will believe them, because they will think if they say this to their colleagues, they will not believe them. And also girls may feel pain and trauma, emotional pain and trauma, which make it very difficult for them to speak about what have happened to them. Of course, if the girl is sexually exploited, you see that it will be very difficult for her to speak it out because of emotional pain and the trauma inside her. So if girls are challenged by this kind of thing, in a better system, girls should feel safe and supported. If this girl has to feel safe and supported, there are some things that needs to be done. For example, firstly, if there is a safe and trusting environment where girls can speak without fear. If there is a trusting environment, girls can feel safe and more supported because they can speak out without fear. Their environment is safe, they'll be supported. Secondly, girls should receive support from friends, peers, peers who stand with them in emotional and encourage them to seek help. Of course, if they're having support from friends and the peers, they will feel more supported and protected. And thirdly, girls should be connected to professional support. Professional support include the health services and counseling. If girls are counseled and supported through the health services, you see that this girl will feel more supported and she'll be good. She'll feel comfortable if this girl have received professional support. And there is also, if their privacy and safety should be protected. If their privacy are protected, and their information should not spread out. If their privacy is protected, you see, girl will feel more comfortable and she'll be very safe because if she has gone through sexual exploitation and you spread that information, you see that this girl will not again come and seek for that help again from you, and she will not air it out. So it is also important to raise awareness in the communities. So girls should learn about their rights, and there should be safe and safe ways to report abuses. So if there are awareness in the community where girls can be safe and supported, and there are also safe ways there where they can report their abuses, you see that maybe if the community leaders and the family leaders should support the survivors instead of blaming them. If these people are supported by the community leaders and the families, instead of blaming them, you see that it will be very good for this girl. They will feel supported, they will feel safe because the communities and the families are not blaming her. If they're blaming her, she will feel unsafe. So if if it is in this better system, we need to improve this by multiples of things, of which to improve this system we suggest a few solutions, of which one of them is girls should feel comfortable talking to their parents and family. So if girls are safe, they can easily talk to their parents. You see that it will make it easier for them to hear out what is challenging them or what they have gone through. It will not be a big barrier for them. And secondly, girls should have access to counseling and emotional support. Of course, this counseling and emotional support are sometimes from the medical workers. You see somewhere where they can counsel her. When they supported her emotionally, you see that this girl who will at least be good, feel good and comfortable. Thirdly, there should be emergency help and protection when a girl is in danger. Of course, when there is emergency help, girls will always be helped. If there is an emergency help and protection, you see that girls will not be harmed by such kind of thing of like sexual exploitation. Finally, girls should receive proper medical care and treatment when needed. Of course, if a girl have gone through sexual exploitation, you see that this girl have gone through a lot. This girl have been pressured into the things that is limiting her. You see that this girl, she might think she has lost her dignity. You can see that this girl will think many things, of which if there are proper medical care for her and the treatment is given to her, she will feel comforted. And maybe there are some other STIs whereby she has contracted. You see that it will limit that. If communities, families and leaders work together, we can create a safer environment where girls can feel protected and can seek justice. Thank you.
అందరికీ నమస్కారం. నా పేరు చాందిని. నేను హోలీ క్రాస్ సంస్థ నిర్వహిస్తున్న గ్లో క్లబ్ సభ్యురాలిని. మా గ్రామం పేరు సింగిడి. ఇది భారతదేశంలో మారుమూల ప్రాంతమైన బామిని మండలంలో ఉంది. ఇది విద్య, ఆరోగ్యం మరియు మౌలిక సదుపాయాల వంటి ఇంకా అభివృద్ధి అవసరం ఉన్న దేశాలలో 500 భారతదేశంలో 500 మండలాల్లో మనకి గుర్తించబడిన బామిని మండలం కూడా ఉంది. మా గ్లో క్లబ్ లో ఉన్న 13 మంది అమ్మాయిలమంతా కలిసి మేము ఒక రోడ్ మ్యాప్ ని కలిసి చేసాం. జెండర్ బేస్డ్ వయలెన్స్ అండ్ మరియు జస్టిస్ గురించి మేము చర్చించాము. ముఖ్యంగా మా సమాజంలో కనిపిస్తున్న లింగ ఆధారిత రూపాలను మేము గుర్తించాము. అవి శారీరక లింగ మరియు లైంగిక హింసలు, వేధింపులు, గృహహింస, వరత్న వేధింపులు ఇలాంటివన్నీ జరుగుతున్నాయి. ముఖ్యంగా పాఠశాలకు వెళ్తున్న సమయంలో వేధింపులు జరుగుతున్నాయి. దాని ఫలితంగా తల్లిదండ్రుల భయాలు కూడా పెరుగుతున్నాయి మరియు బాల్య వివాహాలపై ఒత్తిడి కూడా చాలా పెరుగుతుంది. ఈ సమస్యలను ఎదుర్కోవడానికి మేము మా సూచనలు ఏమిటంటే స్కూల్కి వెళ్తున్న సమయంలో కిక్కిరిసిన బస్సులు మరియు గ్రామాల్లో స్కూళ్ళు అందుబాటులో లేకపోవడం వల్ల మరియు అలాగే గ్రామీణ బాలికలు వేధింపులకు గురవుతున్నారు. మార్గంలో వెళ్తున్న సమయంలో చెడు మాటలు మాట్లాడడం, ఇబ్బంది పెట్టడం, ఆట పట్టించడం ఇలాంటివన్నీ చేస్తున్నారు. ఇలాంటి పరిస్థితి ఎదురైనప్పుడు ముందుగా మేము కొంచెం ధైర్యం తెచ్చుకొని స్నేహితులకు చెప్తాము. అలానే ఇంకొంచెం ధైర్యం తెచ్చుకొని మన తల్లిదండ్రులకు చెప్తారు. ఈ విషయం విన్న తల్లిదండ్రులు మనం బయట చెప్పకు, పోలీస్ స్టేషన్కి వెళ్ళొద్దు, మన పరువే పోతుంది అని అంటారు. ఈ విషయం బయట చెప్తే మన పరువు పోతుంది అంటారు. ఎందుకంటే ఆ సమయంలో మనకి పోలీస్ స్టేషన్ కి వెళ్తే ఏదో తప్పు చేసినట్టుగా భావిస్తారు. అలాగే ఫిర్యాదు చేస్తే భవిష్యత్తులో పెళ్లి జరిగేటప్పుడు ఇబ్బందులు కూడా వస్తాయేమో అని భావిస్తారు. ఈ సమస్య మళ్ళీ వస్తే పోలీస్ స్టేషన్ కు వెళ్ళొద్దు అని తల్లిదండ్రులు చెప్తారు. అలాగే తలదించుకొని వాళ్ళని వదిలేసి నీ పని నువ్వు చూసుకో అని చెప్తారు. ఇలాంటి పరిస్థితులు కొన్నిసార్లు బాలికలకు ఆత్మహత్య చేసుకునే అంత దూరం కూడా తీసుకువెళ్తుంది. ఇలాగే ఈ సమస్యను తీవ్రంగా కొనసాగించడానికి కారణమైన ముఖ్య అడ్డంకులు ఇవి: ఫిర్యాదు చేస్తే పరువు పోతుందనే భయం, తల్లిదండ్రుల అవగాహన లోపం మరియు పోలీస్ స్టేషన్ చెప్పడానికి భయం, హెల్ప్ లైన్ సమాచారం ఎక్కడా లేకపోవడం. అయితే ఈ మార్గంలో ఉండాలి అంటే గ్రామీణ అమ్మాయిలకు బస్సు రవాణా, మంచిగా ఉండాలి. అలాగే తల్లిదండ్రులు చట్టాలు, బాలికల హక్కులపై సరైన అవగాహన కల్పించాలి. పబ్లిక్‌లో మరియు పోలీస్ స్టేషన్స్ దగ్గర అలాగే స్కూళ్ళ దగ్గర హెల్ప్ లైన్ సమాచారం తెలిసి ఉండాలి. అలా జరిగితే అమ్మాయిలు భయపడకుండా, అవమానం రాకుండా తమ చదువును తాము ధైర్యంగా కొనసాగించుకోగలుగుతారు. స్కూల్లో, గ్రామాల్లో మరియు ప్రదేశాల్లో హెల్ప్ లైన్ సమాచారం ఉండాలని నేను భావిస్తున్నాను. ఇంతటి అవకాశం ఇచ్చిన అందరికీ థ్యాంక్ యూ.
Good morning and good evening to everyone joining from different time zones. My name is Prabhudas. I am the partnership coordinator at Holy Cross NGO in India for the Glow Club program in South India. Chandni is a member of our Glow Club. She has just presented her roadmap for justice in her local language of Telugu, and I will now briefly summarize her presentation in English. Chandni from Singadi village in Bamini Mandal, which is very remote and underdeveloped area in India. In her presentation, Chandni shared that 13 girls from their Glow Club came together and discussed gender-based violence and justice. During their discussion, they identified several forms of violence that women and girls experience in their community. These include physical violence, sexual harassment, verbal abuse, domestic violence, and dowry-related harassment. One major issue they highlighted is the harassment girls face while traveling to school. Many girls have traveled to crowd buses, walk long distance to reach school, and during this time, they sometimes face teasing, abuse language, being followed by boys. Because of these experiences, parents become worried about their daughter's safety. When girls share these incidents to their families, parents often hesitate to report them due to fear of social stigma, concern about family reputation, and fear of approaching the police. As a result, some parents decide to stop their daughter's education, and in some cases, this can lead to child marriage before the age of 18. Chandni also shared that many girls strongly wish to continue their education, but harassment and lack of support create emotional stress and discourage them from pursuing their studies. To address these challenges, girls suggested several important actions that are providing safe transportation facility for rural girls traveling to school, creating awareness in schools about safety and legal protection for girls, educating parents and communities about girls' rights and laws about protect them, ensuring quick and strict action against harassment, along with friendly and supportive policing system that build confidence so that girls and parents can feel safe to report complaints, strengthening efforts to prevent child marriages. They also recommended some practical steps such as displaying helpline numbers in schools and public places, organizing awareness programs in village, arranging special buses where needed, and setting up confidential complaint boxes for girls in schools. Through her presentation, Chandni emphasized that when girls feel safe and supported, they can continue their education with confidence and dignity and build a better future. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Christina, and I'm from Nigeria, and I'm from Health Aid for All Initiative, HAFI. My roadmap discussion is around early child marriage. During the course of picking this issue, me and the girls from the IDG camp were able to discuss the different things that girls face that really impact their life now and later in the future. And we were able to view the level of impact early child marriage has on girls in our community and in Nigeria. As we were picking this topic, we also noted the things that causes early child marriage. and we're able to bring out 4 things that really impact or make parents married out their age. We have things like poverty. A lot of girls in our community and our surroundings, and even in the world, have this problem with their families who think they can use them to escape poverty or to enhance their life. So most often, girls are married out at an early age just so that they can enhance their family life or free their family from poverty, which is not supposed to be happening. And also, secondly, there's things like cultural traditions. It's a normal thing in some people's culture to marry out their child at very young ages, like 10, 11, or as you start your menstruation as a girl, you feel like you're matured enough to get married. But obviously, your body is not matured enough to bear children. And once you get married, you're expected to start having children or bringing children into the family, which causes a lot of health risk. But they don't consider those things. They feel like it's tradition, it's part of their culture, it's part of who they are. But I believe that it's not all cultures that should be practiced. Like early child marriage is not a healthy cultural practice. Another thing is lack of education, or when parents are not enlightened. They tend to not know what they're doing, or they marry out their children out because they don't know the consequences of their action, they don't know the risk, and they don't know the impact it's going to have on the girl. So they lack the awareness, they lack the understanding of their actions and what they are doing to their female child at a very young age that will stay with them until they grow in life. Another thing is gender inequality. A lot of girls are deprived of their rights, their voice, their decisions, and their thoughts just because they're girls. And most of the times they are told, oh, well, you can't become anything because later you will get married. So what's the point of wasting our money, sending you to school, furthering your future? And so they end up marrying out the girls at a very early age just because they feel like they're just girls. So they don't really need further education, or they don't really need to go get that master degree. They don't really need to go and get a PhD. They don't really need to go and further their life. Maybe they want to be adventurous. They don't need that. They feel like girls' child voice don't matter. So they just marry them out at an early age. What is not supposed to happen, but happens anyway. There's a lot of social pressures that goes around with this early child marriage thing. A lot of families agree to marry out their children, their girl child at a very early stage due to social pressures. There's a lot of social pressures everywhere. And girls, most families can't face this social pressure. Like I said, there is something about cultural traditions. Families face social pressures, even families that don't want to get their child married at an early age. They end up doing that because the social pressures that's coming from the religion, the traditions, they're saying, oh, marry out your child, she's of age already, she's already 16. Do you want her to get old? If she's 20 years old, then she's too old, nobody will marry her, nobody will see her, she's already old, she'll not be able to give birth again. So to marry out their children at a very early age, thinking, oh, if I marry her out, the social pressure will be less on me. There's also, like I said, lack of awareness. Lack of awareness creates a lot of there's this thing that I heard, is it concerning ignorance or something? But when you are not educated, it deprives you of a lot of things. And families that are not educated of what the consequences, the real consequences of what early child marriage does to a girl child, they will never get to know what this thing is, because they lack the awareness of what they're actually doing. And it puts girls in lots of narrow roads. There are a lot of women who who I have encountered that has had mental traumas, or they just exited from the society because they feel because of a trauma that they had when they were married out at an early age. Some don't even live to an old age. Some people die when they are young, during childbirth and the rest. It causes and flushes out a lot of girls' visions, future for themselves. And early child marriage has a very strong, a very strong, what's the word I'm looking for? A very strong impact on young girls in the future, most especially. Another thing is the ideal part. What should happen if system worked? If the system was working, if the system was attentive to girls, what should happen? Girls should seek help. Girls should seek more knowledge about their rights. Girls should seek more knowledge about their voice. I feel like if a girl knows her rights, if a girl is educated about her rights, if a girl is educated about her voice, if a girl is educated about who she is, what her future is, what she can achieve in life, what she can bring into the world, and what she can bring to her future, to her generation, then she will stand her ground against early child marriage. And when girls are sent to school and not brought out of school just so they can get married, they will gain more knowledge concerning early child marriage, and they'll be able to communicate with their parents concerning early child marriage, telling them the different risk, the different problems that come with early child marriage. And if girls are able to discuss with their parents, they are able to tell their parents, they're able to give their parents knowledge about the consequences of early child marriage. And also, I feel like laws should be enforced and carried out. If laws are being enforced and carried out, a lot of people will not go unpunished. If there are strong laws carrying out against early child marriage, or if any family court or community court carrying out early child marriage, then they should be put in they should be put under the law, or anybody that goes against what the system says. And systems should stand on their words. There are lots of systems that don't stand on their words. They just don't care about girls' rights. But because we are here, we are educated of who we are and what what we are all about. We are so happy. I'm so happy that I'm able to know who I am and stand for myself. And also, I feel like communities and the society should not be pressuring girls into early child marriage. And any community that is found so should be put behind bars. Thank you.
Rani, please start.
Yes, ma'am. नमस्कार मो ना रानी मो भ्यूज एंड महाज्योति ग्लो क्लब रु भारत रु कहूची मो एटी चाइल्ड लेबर एवं सेथिरे जड़ित होइथि चाइल्ड अब्यूज कथा कहबाकू जाउची एई समस्या मु आ मोर दुई जण सांग कम्युनिटी रे हेउथिबा इशू उपरे कहबाकू स्थिर करथिलु आमे कम्युनिटी रे गरीब श्रेणी रो झियो माननकू पाठ न पढ़िबा पर घर को काम करबाकू बाध्य करा जाए जहा द्वारा पैसा इनकम करिवे जेते बेले झियटा अन्य जगह बाहर काम करे ता सहित चाइल्ड अब्यूज होता है जा असहनीय जेते बेले से यही कथा को ता घरे बा सांग साथी ओ समाज कहे ताको केई सुनंती नाही ताको कहते कि तू बहाना करचु कि काम करबा पई इग्नोर करंती ता कथा को केई सुनंती नी परम कह जाय जे से बहाना करूची काम न करिया पई चाइल्ड अब्यूज तार शरीर और मानसिक आघात को देई थाए ता सहित एही सहनीय चाइल्ड अब्यूज होता है जदि ओ एहा पई लॉ राइट्स अच्छी किंतु एहा ठीक से पालन करा जाय पार नै जेते बेले ता सहित रेप हेउची तेते बेले एही आईन कानून ना नेता माने ना ପ୍ରଶାସନ କିଛି ସୁରକ୍ଷା ଦେଉନାହାନ୍ତି। ବରଂ ତାକୁ ସମାଜ ଆଇନ କାନୁନ ଠିକ ସେ ପାଳନ ହେବା କଥା, ଯାହାଦ୍ୱାରା ସେ ପାଠ ପଢିବ ଓ ଏହିପରି ପର ଘରେ ଚାଇଲ୍ଡ ଲେବର କାମ କରିବ ନାହିଁ, ଚାଇଲ୍ଡ ଅବ୍ୟୁଜ ହେବ ନାହିଁ। No more child labor, no more child abuse. Thank you.
Hello everyone, I'm Susmita Naik. I'm going to present Dani's statement. I'm the partnership coordinator from Views Odisha India program. So I'm going to interpret Rani's statement. Rani is one of our member of Views Mahajyoti Glow Club India. Rani is going to present his roadmap to justice on child abuse and related to child labor. In this issue, the two other girls also find out from the community. So in our community, we have seen that the lower strata girls are forced to do work outside. In spite of her age, they are forced to do outside and do work as a daily work labor, helper, and delivers housemaid in the community. So at this stage is only for the study. So nobody is thinking about their study. So when a girl is going outside and faced child abuse associated with the child labor, so when she is trying to share all this incident with the community, family, and the friends, nobody is going to listen her. Everybody blame her that she is only doing a plea, that she is not going to outside and not to go for the yearning for the family. Because a girl is have to do work at the family as well as to go outside to yearn for the family. So when that in that case, girl is so mentally disturbed by facing all this abuse, which is not tolerable at this age. So there is also a law and child right is against of child labor and child abuse, but nobody is listening. And whenever a girl is facing rape cases, this law and this administration even it doesn't give any justice to her. So rather all the laws should be strictly maintained, enforced properly, so that a girl should take her education properly. And through this presentation, Rani is going to say that no child labor, no child abuse. Thank you.
Brazil, you can start.
Rasila, can we request you?
Hello everyone, my name is Drasila. I'm from Zambia and I'm a proud member of the Grow Club called Kansanshi from an organization called Charity Center for Children and Youth Development. So today I'm speaking for many girls in my community, maybe even worldwide. So I want to talk about how girls are treated unfairly, specifically gender discrimination and gender-based violence. So in my community, many girls are taught that school is not important for them. They are taught that their future is only marriage, and they are taught that their dreams are too big. And this story was based on Nelson Mandela's quote that said, "The true value of a man is not measured in time of comfort, but in time of controversy and challenge." When you have a cause and a mission, you find a way to rise above challenges and make a difference. So I want to explain this through a story. So the girl in my story represents many girls in Zambia or even worldwide. So the girl loves school, she wants to learn, and she wants to become someone important. Maybe she wants to become a lawyer, a doctor, or a leader. So, but her parents tell her, "You're a girl, you don't need too much education." And they say, "Stop school and it's time to get married," because they think that she's a source of income. So when she says no, she's beaten and she's forced to leave school. And at school, boys laugh at her. They say girls have no future and they say girls cannot have good jobs. And this causes discouragement and mental health. So slowly she starts to leave them and she feels small and she feels like she's not important. But this is not only her story, but it's the story of many girls in my community, or maybe even worldwide. So we face many problems, and according to my research, gender-based violence and gender discrimination is the core of early marriages, dropping out of school, poverty, and not knowing about career choices, and no safe spaces for girls. So when families are poor, they think marrying a girl will help them. They think that girls are a source of income. And when girls don't know their rights, they cannot speak up. When there's no safe space, girls stay silent because safe spaces provide support for girls. But this is not only her story, but it is the story of many girls. But this does not end there. So one day her friends invite her to join a girls' club, also known as a safe space. So in that safe space, she learns something very important. She learns that she's important, she learns about her rights, she learns to be confident, she learns to speak up, and she learns to believe in herself. And then, with support from her mentors, she talks to her parents again, but this time she speaks calmly and with confidence. She explains her dreams, she explains why school is important, and she starts consisting. After that, she studies hard, she improves her grades, and she gets a scholarship. Like always, comfort kills consistency, and consistency kills comfort. And then she goes back to school, and one day she becomes an advocate for girls. She speaks up against early marriages, she helps girls stay in school, and she becomes the voice once needed. She once needed. So she needed the voice of justice. She needed the voice that can raise awareness, and she became this voice for other girls. So this is what happens when girls are given safe spaces, skills, knowledge, confidence, and opportunities. Girls are not weak, and girls don't fail because they are not smart. Girls fail because they are not supported. And girls don't marry because they want to, they marry because they have no choice. And we must give girls a choice. We need more safe spaces for support, more scholarships for hope, strong action against child marriage for justice, and communities that support girls for raising awareness. So today I stand here not as Drasila, but I stand for every girl who wants to go to school, every girl who wants a career, and every girl who wants a voice to be heard. And when you educate the girl, you change her life. When you support the girl, you change the future. And like we learn in Growth Lab, this is the time to act now. So this is the time to act now. Thank you.
Over to you, RMCs.
Thank you to our amazing presenters. We are so proud of you.
We are happy. Now we move to our expert response panel.
We are happy to introduce our moderator, Ria Taku.
Ria Taku is a passionate advocate for sexual and reproductive health and rights.
She has worked for over more than 13 years in organizations with young people in India, South Asia, and globally.
Please welcome Ria Taku to moderate this important discussion.
Thank you so much, Habiba. And I think what we have witnessed right now, looking at the girls mapping their own realities, mapping the barriers that they face and the pathways they imagine towards safety and justice, I think it's incredibly powerful. And these roadmaps are not just stories that we heard today, but they are analysis of girls showing us how justice system actually functions in their lives. As we move to the next session of our event today, over the next 30 minutes, we'll hear reflections from four of our experts working across policy, legal systems, global frameworks, and girl centered programming. Each of them bringing a different perspective on what it takes to make justice system truly work for girls. Let me briefly introduce our panelists. So first, Aksa Khan from CARE USA. Aksa has more than 2 decades of experience advancing women's and girls' rights globally through her work with organizations such as ActionAid, Oxfam, and now CARE USA. She has supported gender equality initiatives across multiple countries, and currently she leads CARE USA's Global Women and Girls Technical Support Cohort. Next, Mariam Faruqi, CEO Ipo Bruno. Mariam is a human rights lawyer and access to justice advocate whose work focuses on ensuring that legal systems are accessible to the most marginalized. Through Ipro Bono, she works across multiple countries to expand legal support and right-based services. We are also joined by Garima Sharma, an international global consultant and gender and development practitioner. Garima brings more than a decade of experience working across South Asia on girls' rights, climate justice, and gender responsive humanitarian programming, and has worked with organizations including IPPF and UNDP. And finally, Adrian Warren, Vice President of Programs at Global Girls Glow. Adrian leads the development and implementation of Glow's global programming, focusing on strengthening girls' leadership, confidence, and advocacy skills through mentorship, safe spaces, and social emotional learning. These introductions were brief, but I think the experience they bring in here is much richer. And if I could just speak about them, it would take the whole of the time. So therefore, it was a brief introduction. But these are all experts and leaders in their fields, and I thank them for being here. So with this, let us begin. My first question is for Aksa. Aksa, the girls' roadmaps showed us very clearly where policy intentions break down into practice when it comes to practice, and where systems that are meant to protect girls actually fail them, dismiss them, or make it harder for them to seek help. So, from your decades of experience working at the front line of girls' and women's rights, what is the most critical shift that is needed in policy and frontline practice to make justice systems genuinely girl centered?
Thank you so much, Ria. And I'm amazed and inspired by the wonderful presentation by the girls from different countries. Thank you so much. They say that there is no such thing as voiceless until you're deliberately kept silent. I'm going to talk about your question. I'm going to just highlight from my experience and from the context that I am based in. And it's important to understand, I mean, there's several barriers, to effective justice system, but due to time limitations, I'm going to touch upon two of those, and one of them is the familial barrier. Whenever it's important to know that whenever we are talking or working on the rights of girls, it's important to see it through a familial lens. Now, the deeply entrenched expectation on norms that a family's honor is tied to a girl's body. And this is an immense weight of how a girl should behave, dress, move. And this places a huge responsibility on girls, You're just self-analyzing yourself, and also this consciousness, it's been put into you at a very early age. As soon as girls they reach their adolescent years, it becomes worrisome for parents. It's not just a matter of personal conduct, but it also silences their ability to speak about abuse, leaving them isolated and with no or little agency of their own. Now, listening to the presentations and especially, emphasizing about child marriage, which Alina talked about, and with Chandani, Christina, and the rest of the girls that they talked about, it's looking at the vulnerabilities of sexual harassment, linking with child marriages. In a study that I conducted on situation of girls' education in a rural area of Pakistan, I observed that after primary education, many girls were unable to continue their secondary education because the schools were far away. Additionally, which also was pointed out by Chandani, that parents often harbor a perceived fear of sexual harassment of girls on the way to school, which prevents them from letting their daughters continue their education. As a result, the girls end up staying home, doing household chores, looking after younger siblings, and eventually being married off. And in Pakistan, 13 million out of school girls are there, and this is like, you've already lost a child who could have become a doctor, an engineer, or an entrepreneur. Second is the institutional barriers about the policies and programs. And what I have experienced is that there are sometimes not inclusive of girls' needs or concerns. I've often noticed that any analysis or a consultative process that is conducted, women and girls are considered as one entity. And girls are actually muted, whether it's a focus group discussion or whether it's a meeting or an event. Right. Most of the programs are targeted to married women with very little concentration on the girls' health, especially when we talk about sexual and reproductive health rights. And then also the weak criminal justice system. Even if they are laws, but the criminal justice system, if they are unable to convict the perpetrators, it's the laws they do not hold. And in my country, the conviction rate is less than 2%. And there's also insensitivity on the part of law enforcement agencies. When you're talking about a roadmap of justice, the thing to look into is that whether to build a system or strengthen a system where the girls are protected. They're protected by the law, there's safe reporting mechanisms, and they're able to access justice. So the steps are, the first one is, which is really links with the community as well as the family, is the changes in social norms. Justice cannot exist without social norms change. And then we need to talk to and we need to engage the gatekeepers of these social norms, which is, talking to the community leaders, family members, the religious leaders, and then also finding different approaches and tools to actually engage them. It could be awareness campaigns against child marriages or honor violence or sexual violence. It could also be like through using media, storytelling techniques. So at CARE, we use the social analysis and action approach. And this not only identifies social norms that reinforce inequalities, child marriages, or even overall violence against girls, but it also tackles those social norms. And this is done by first starting the reflection with the practitioners to know that, whether they've internalized these social norms or biases towards girls. And then you are ready to change yourself and then to impart that change in the communities through community dialogues, through action planning and implementing those action plans. So CARE has run a huge program on social norms in Bangladesh and Nepal, which is called the Tipping Point. And it not only addresses the causes of child marriages, but it also builds the confidence in girls, giving them that agency. So through this program, we've shown that we've done it, and it is possible to challenge norms of girls' mobilities around non-traditional, around what is traditional behavior, around non-traditional behavior, girls riding bicycles, playing games, sports related to their interaction with boys, and then social norms that are related to decision-making regarding input to marriage decisions, their input to marriage decisions, as well as the girls' own voice and collective action. And through these programs, we have been able to reduce child marriages and plus build and strengthen the girls' agencies. And then, of course, when you're talking about legal frameworks, and I quote the example in Pakistan, there are a number of progressive laws in Pakistan. We have Child Marriages Restraint Act that criminalizes child marriages. There's a punishment for anybody, for the guardians or for the parents marrying off their child less than 18. And then the law that I worked on is Protection Against Harassment of Women and Girls at the Workplace Act. There are two anti-sexual harassment laws, one that criminalizes sexual harassment in public places, and the other one is also at the workplace. And the reason for having these laws is to encourage women to join the workforce, to claim their rights in public spaces, right? To have a voice and to be visible in these public spaces. So the important thing is that, is the enforcement of these laws. It doesn't come alone. It has to bring about a total change in the mindset and attitudinal changes towards women and girls' rights. The other
Thank you
is
so
that, yeah, it's just one more, is that when I've also heard the girls say that it's very difficult for them to take up their cases. There's stigma attached to it. So it's important to have, child protection courts, and also organizations that provide counseling, as well as they provide legal aid to girls, access, so that, accessing justice and reporting their cases, it becomes safer for them. And most important is the sensitization of the police and investigation officer, because these are the weakest links. So it's extremely important to sensitize them, to do gender sensitive trainings, and also to train them on how to conduct cases on gender based violence. So these are some of the things, and of course, education is important, especially ensuring secondary education, providing transport facilities for girls, and also enforcing laws and creating awareness in educational institutions against sexual harassment, on the way as well as in the educational institutions. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Aksa. And I think you raised very important points and gave suggestions. But to summarize, I think you spoke more about an safer ecosystem, which is important to implement the laws and policies, but also for women and girls to access, and also not to look at women and girls as one entity, but to look at them as a separate entity, and uh, addressing the social biases and norms of the service providers first before they go out and implement it. Thank you for those insightful suggestions. Now, moving on to Mariam. So, Mariam, one message from girls which was very clear is that they know when something is wrong, they recognize harm. But when they try to seek help, the pathway often becomes unclear, intimidating, or simply inaccessible. So, from a legal perspective, what do you think are the most significant institutional or legal barriers that prevent adolescent girls from accessing justice? And what would it take to make these pathways truly accessible and girl friendly?
Thanks, Ria. And first, just thank you so much to Habiba and Muslima for moderating us so well, and to you, Ria, of course. And of course, hearing from Alima, Chandni, Christiana, Rani, and Drusilla was really enlightening. And I love the illustrated roadmaps. It's something I'll be talking about a bit in my response to your important question. And when I was thinking about this, I was sort of pondering on, what iProbono has been doing now for about 16 years. We're a social justice organization that enables people to access their rights in pursuit of a just society. And through the years, we've seen that it's usually girls who face the most barriers and the multiple barriers when trying to access justice. And I think that before I delve into the question, just to mention that the barriers aren't always just legal, they're intertwined with social, institutional, and very practical everyday barriers as well. So very quickly, I thought it'd be useful for the girls to hear a little bit about what iProbono does. So we're lawyers and we have social workers, local communities, and partner organizations on our team. We all work together so that people who are often excluded from justice systems can understand and claim their rights. So we provide free legal representation at court for children, both boys and girls, who have suffered exploitation and abuse. And we also represent children in conflict with the law. And as Aksa said, often laws in our countries are good law, but it's people don't know about them or don't know how to access them. I think importantly for the girls here today, we also work with survivors to make sure perpetrators are convicted before courts of law. So, in terms of thinking about the barriers, I wanted to talk first very briefly about lack of access and understandable information about rights. And I think the girls on this who are part of this group today are more familiar with their rights than many others, many girls simply don't know what their rights are or where they can go for help. Legal systems, as you've all talked about, can be complex, they can be intimidating, even for adults, not just for girls. And for those especially who might have limited mobility or access to education, you've all talked about access to education, and often navigating these systems we've seen can feel really impossible. In many of the communities we work with, and that's across India, Nepal, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, and Pakistan, girls do experience harassment. We've seen forced marriages cases, other types of abuse cases, but they don't realize that there actually is legal protection in their countries. And how do you actually report what's happened? How do you use the right language or approach the right people? So, really, the first step towards justice is accessible legal information in language that everybody understands. So, in local languages, I think the roadmaps were so effective in the way you used illustration to describe what the situation is. We're trying to do that too. And it has to be in places that you trust, like your schools, community groups, other digital platforms, perhaps, that you have access to. Um, and I'll just go back to the illustrated roadmaps, which is such a good example. The second thing that I wanted to raise is that ultimately systems are designed by adults, right? Justice systems. They're not designed for girls or, with girls or with boys in mind for that matter. The places that you have to engage with to get your sort of situations sort of recognized by institutions, whether they're police stations, whether they're courts, other reporting mechanisms are really intimidating. They're often unsafe spaces. I've seen situations where police, etc., and I'm sure you've all faced this as well in some way, shape, or form, are really dismissive of young people. I think that you've all raised that and within family spaces and institutional spaces, girls fear being blamed, not believed. Often families discourage reporting because they worry about stigma or community backlash. Christiana, you spoke about this, and I was minded about some cases related to sexual exploitation and grooming in the north of England, where young girl survivors were not taken seriously by the police in situations where they didn't have families, even by families and social workers. I think, again, going back to your illustrated roadmaps, you show this very, very clearly. Girls often try to seek help, but the systems that they encounter are really confusing and ultimately unresponsive. So when institutions don't feel safe, I do feel that a lot of the girls that we support and work with just don't seek the help that they need. I think the third issue I wanted to raise is the very practical barriers that make reporting difficult, right? Lack of access to justice systems, really basic things like the distance, the cost of getting to a space where you can report, that's lack of transport, even the absence, and you've all raised this, of trusted adults that can support girls through these processes. For example, Chandni, you talked about the experience of harassment on the way to school. Who do you actually tell about these things, and where do you actually access legal redress? I think many girls are unable to travel to a police station, and when they get there, there are other sorts of barriers in engaging with those spaces. So I think justice does remain technically unavailable technically available in many of the countries that we work in, but practically it's just not accessible. I thought a little bit about our experience and things that have made a difference in more age appropriate pathways, etc. I think we all agree, and Aksa, you've talked about it, how justice systems may become more girl friendly, training police officers, sensitizing legal service providers who understand how to work with young people. I'm also thinking about confidential reporting channels and creating safe spaces where girls can speak without fear. And this means like engaging differently with the kind of procedures that we're working with that protect girls from further harm or stigma during the legal process. I think this leads me to thinking about a second point about stronger support systems for girls. As I've said earlier, legal processes can be overwhelming, especially for younger people. the requirement for trusted adults and counselors and community organizations to all work together that can guide young people through the reporting system and to accessing support. I'm just thinking at iPro Bono, one of the ways that we've tried to do this is toolkits and illustrated guides that help frontline organization respond to issues like child marriage, other types of gender-based violence, and providing clear legal guidance and practical steps for supporting people who are engaging with the system and also for supporting survivors. I think there's a lot of work that we all need to do to bridge that gap between communities and the formal justice systems. And then I think my third point, I'm thinking beyond formal justice systems. Access to justice has to extend beyond our traditional court systems. So let's meet girls where they are in the spaces that they are. So schools, communities, perhaps digital spaces that you're all using. I think community-based legal support, helplines, and other types of technology can help girls access legal advice confidentially, and also in perhaps a more confident space as well. I just wanted to share a really brief example, and Ria, I hope I'm okay for time. That highlights a sort of broader approach. It comes from some of our work in Afghanistan, and I think might resonate with some of you. After the Taliban took over in 2021, many girls and women lost access to education and basic freedoms overnight. We engaged a global network, not just of lawyers, but of other partners, and worked to support the evacuation of about 170 people. And that group included girls at risk. Some of them were cyclists, athletes, and human rights defenders. What I really learned from this experience is that justice isn't just about legal processes. It's also about ensuring that girls can access fundamental rights to safety, to education, and opportunity. I was really excited to see that one of the girls from our group, Mehnaz, is here on this webinar today. And I just wanted to mention that she's managed to navigate fairly complex immigration systems in various countries through support from lawyers, through supports from our network, but also on her own because she's learned how to understand and navigate these systems. I feel very proud of that. I just wanted to end on thinking about how we listen to the girls themselves. And I think being on this Global Girls webinar is a really unique experience. We're not often part of these sorts of discussions where girls are leading the way. Referring to those fantastic illustrated roadmaps again, you're not only describing the barriers that you're faced, but as we heard in the introduction, you're proposing solutions such as safer transport, stronger reporting systems, and better institutional support. So if we, as lawyers and people working in the justice system, want the system to work for girls, we have to design it with you, not just for you, if that makes sense. I just a closing point that I really do believe that making justice pathways safer and more age appropriate means removing the barriers that prevent girls from being heard. Global Glow's a really amazing platform, I think, for ensuring that we have many voices heard. We also need to build systems that recognize rights and respect your experiences and respond when you actually seek help. I think access to justice shouldn't just depend on age, confidence, or circumstance. It's really something that every girl should be able to rely on. So I hope that I can take away some of the learnings from today and implement them in the work that iPro Bono is doing every day. Thanks so much again for having me as part of this conversation. Back to you, Ria.
Thank you so much, Mariam, and thank you for joining our conversation. I think you brought great insights, and we are constantly talking about how it is important to take justice systems to girls and not wait, or like, how do we bridge those gaps of access? And I think it's very important. And as we move on to the next conversation, but also thank you so much, and we would really love, whether it's Aksa, your resources, or Mariam, if you can share some of these resources, toolkits with us. It would be really helpful. We share it with our girls across the 30 countries we work, and I think that's the synergy that we are also looking here for. So I think talking about platforms, talking about listening to girls, providing them safe spaces and stronger spaces for them, and a stronger support system like you talked about. I'll move on to Garima with my next question. So Garima, we are here during the 70th CSW, and which is one of the most important global platforms for advancing gender equality. Yet, with the girls' roadmaps raised an important question today for spaces like this, where girls are invited to participate or they are truly shaping the decisions that affect their lives. So, from your experience working across global development and policy spaces, how can global frameworks just move beyond participation toward meaningful influence uh, by adolescent girls? Over to you.
Okay, thank you, Ria, for that question. Ria, I would just break my response into first understanding where participation becomes tokenistic and what meaningful participation means, and then moving from A to B, the journey, how we have to travel that journey. And putting it very in a very layperson's language, changing the narration from saying, oh, you know what, in that conference, there were girls in the room, to saying, you know what, girls actually changed the room. So we have to take that narrative there. And I'm not denying the fact that progress hasn't been made in inviting girls into global spaces. But the change has been very slow in sharing power with them. They're part of opening remarks of these conferences, international congregations. Their inspirational segments are represented by girls, but they are very conspicuously absent when decisions are to be made, when documents are to be finalized, guidelines are to be made, like planning happens. Their work, what they put in, is not even translated into indicators or not even into funding priorities. And when it comes to participation, is the participation representational is also one of the important facets, which means only a very small, well educated, polished, well resourced group from a particular region, we see visibility of those girls. So we also have to be very cognizant of it. And also, there are evidences which tell girls are majorly put into global spaces where they put across their personal stories also at times, stories of violence, stories of hardships. And there are times when they are re-traumatized in a manner, and very little attention is paid to consent, safety, or longer term support, because it is we adults who draft those agendas. Now, I'll just talk about a small example from my school. A very distinguished guest had visited our school, and we were asked to put across our questions and write and submit in advance. So I had scribbled a question. I was called over and I was told that my question would not be put forth because it is not politically viable. It is not something which is palatable. So it is the adults which decide the content of the conversation that girls and adolescents will engage in. And Ria, I just noticed in your work, I think I would congratulate the presentations that were made by the girls. Even Mariam also pointed out, they were very, they were rude, they were raw, and they were real. This is what we want. I think I would thank Global Girls Glow for walking the talk, like just putting what is real. And I think I learned a lot. I learned from, I would say, Alima, like who stops putting hearts and smileys, like from Chandini, who stops from being confident in your own native language. Like you could put colors, you could put a country flag. Christiana, who used triangle, square, and quadrilateral to present her data. From Rani and Drasila, like who stops them from using pictures and silhouettes instead of text in presenting what they want to present. So I think it was a very eye-opening session, seeing them just being raw and real. That is what we want. Like participation, tokenism does not mean how many girls are speaking. It also means how little their contribution is allowed to change. And from tokenism, let's shift to what meaningful participation means. And it does not only mean numbers, but it is more structured, it is more resourced, and something which is more nuanced. Maybe having them at standing committees, having them at intergenerational advisory mechanisms, including them to co-shape and co-create agendas, priorities. And one more very important thing I want to talk about is transparency. Like not undermining girls. It is our responsibility to share decisions with them, to tell them what decisions are on the table, what is non-negotiable, and what can be realistically changed, and show them how their contribution is being used. So at the heart of this conversation, which I'm saying, let's not belittle them to beneficiaries with good stories, but also make them political actors, like rights holders, where their analysis is indispensable. And this all could also be done by using a lot of girl generated evidence, like the ones which they talked about, roadmaps to justice, community mapping, justice diaries, safety audits. All this is there in the public domain. I think it has to be used as evidence. When UN entities, they draft their general comments, maybe guidance notes or thematic reports on justice and protection, they need to systematically review girl generated evidence and not only totally rely on government submissions and large NGO reports. Even indicators and monitoring frameworks could be adjusted to reflect what girls themselves define as meaningful outcomes, which a lot of girls did. For safety on their way to school, freedom from online harassment, control over their bodies, digital identities, gender based violence. Like, if we are serious about evidence based advocacy and policy, then girls' own evidence must count as evidence and not as anecdote. And coming back to the last part of the question, like how can we use all this as entry point into some maybe concrete commitments after CSW 17? I think first thing that we could do is maybe institutionalize girl-led advisory spaces, like create permanent adolescent girl advisory groups. For CSW, it would mean having a general comment process, maybe key special procedures where they have very defined TORs and dedicated budget. Maybe changing how we design participation. That's also very important. Maybe having like budget upfront for interpretation, connectivity, stipend, care, safety, and also ensuring there is consent, there is safeguarding, there's data protection, and all this should be non-negotiable, not just last-minute consideration. And third and very important is linking the global spaces in which we put girls and adolescents back to their local power. Every time a girl speaks at a global platform, she is not left more exposed and less protected because of her visibility. So we also have to make sure of it. And in a nutshell, maybe by CSW 72, 73, now we are in 70s, we have like 70 decades, and we are talking about this very important subject. I think we should have come a lot before. I think all major UN justice and protection frameworks should at least have one standing adolescent girl advisory mechanism. They should have requirements to integrate girl generated evidence and have a dedicated budget line for girl led participation. And Ria, this is all this is modest. I'm not saying this will solve all structural inequities, but at least there would be a shift from participation movement to where girls participation is expected, enabled, and resourced. And let me be very candid, making this shift will not be easy, especially as the political space for girls and women's rights is visibly shrinking in many contexts. The recent example, the proposed merger of UN Women and UNFPA, is just one very recent example. I'm reiterating how fragile dedicated institutional spaces and resources for gender equity have become. And let me close by saying that girls are not asking for something very simple as being heard, but they are asking to help govern the systems that will shape their lives. And we as adults at least owe them this much. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Garima. I think I just saw everybody nodding their heads and, like resonating with what you were saying. And thank you so much for giving these insights. I think it is very important where we shift from tokenism to meaningful participation. And yes, Global Girls Glow believes in that. And we also walk the talk because here we believe that girls are already leaders and they are the one who know the best. So our tagline is also, like girls know the best. They lead because they know the best. So with that, I think it's best to now move to the next question because Adrian is going to add more to it. And we'll hear more about what the programming here is and what are the other uh, necessities when we talk about access to justice, when we talk about policies, or even we talk about these spaces where girls can speak, contribute, and lead change. So, Adrian, this plus we also heard the girls that they presented their experiences, and like Mariam also said that they analyzed systems and not only talked about the issues, but today they also proposed solutions and spoke with clarity and confidence. So that kind of leadership doesn't happen by accident. We love to hear, from Global Girls Glow's program and learning on what role does social emotional learning, safe spaces, and supportive networks play in enabling girls recognize harm, build agency, and advocate for themselves. Over to you, Adrian. And before that, I think there's also a question in the chat, and I would request, which is asking the same thing. What keeps the girls going in challenges like this? And I think Adrian is gonna answer and cover this. So here's your answer as well. Over to you, Adrian.
Thank you, Ria. And before I begin my response to your question, I just want to express my deepest appreciation to my fellow panelists and then the girls who presented their roadmaps, just for bringing your own expertise and such insight to this discussion. I can't thank you enough for all that you've brought to this. So the question that you asked is a very important one, Ria. I'm very glad you asked it, because when we talk about access to justice for adolescent girls, we are typically focused on the presence, the presence or absence or enforcement of particular laws or reporting systems or institutional accountability. And all of that is very important to continue improving. But I think that there's a sort of aspect of or another barrier to justice that we talk far less about, which is the one that sits inside of a girl and not outside of her. So I want to start by sharing the story of one of our program participants. Her name is Christine. Christine is 16 years old and she lives in a refugee camp in Malawi. She also lives with a physical disability that affects the way that she walks. And like many girls living with disabilities around the world, she's faced a lot of stigma and discrimination in her community and among her peers. So growing up, she was subjected to a lot of teasing, a lot of bullying. She always felt like people were pitying her. And that caused her to withdraw quite a bit. She told us that it just made her life very stressful. She had a lot of anger that she wasn't quite sure how to express because she had no one to speak with about it. And then she often would stay quiet. She told us she just wanted to go home most times and sleep and just stay in the bed. And so, most of us here working with adolescent girls know that when a girl feels isolated and unheard in that way, speaking up can feel very impossible. There's a partner in the refugee camp that we partnered with to get Glow Clubs off the ground, and Christine joined one of our Glow Clubs there. And for those of you who aren't familiar with Global Girls Glow in our programming, Glow Club is our signature program. It's a multi-year mentor facilitated space where girls meet regularly. They learn social emotional skills. They build that sense of agency and confidence, and they're able to practice using their voice, speaking out and using their voice. And so, like many girls that first joined Glow Club, Christine didn't say much. She actually preferred to sit back and observe. And week over week, she began to create those friendships and relationships that allowed her to feel safe enough to open up. With the ongoing support of her mentor and other girls in the club, she began to share her experiences. She also learned how to manage her anger that she had been carrying, and so that just increased her confidence. And last year, she actually stood in front of teachers, parents, and community leaders at a Glow Club summit, and she advocated publicly for children living with disabilities and having equal access to education. So I share Christine's journey with all of you, which is a journey from like her isolation to public advocacy, because I think it illustrates something very important, which is that access to justice doesn't just begin when a girl reports harm or when she decides to challenge an institution. It really begins when she believes in her own voice, when she believes that her voice matters. So at Global Girls Glow, Christine's story reflects a pattern that we see across Glow Clubs around the world. And before a girl can seek justice or challenge injustice, there are certain capabilities that need to be developed first. So she needs to be able to recognize harm. She needs to be able to trust her own voice and manage the fear or shame that often silences girls. And we heard through the roadmaps over and over again about the fear, the fear of backlash, the fear of shame, the fear of not being believed. So these inner conditions make justice seeking behavior possible. And they're fundamentally social and emotional capabilities, which is why in our programming, we really focus on social emotional learning. It sits at the foundation of all of our programming at Global Girls Glow. In Glow Club, girls develop these socio-emotional skills in very practical ways. So they develop self-awareness, where they begin to understand aspects of their identity, their strengths, their values, their boundaries, among many other things. And this helps them recognize harmful behaviors that may be normalized in their communities, schools, or families. Things like what you heard in our roadmaps: harassment, coercion, exclusion, lowered expectations because they're girls. So, through the development of communication and relationship skills, girls can practice expressing their perspectives. They can practice setting boundaries. They can also practice seeking support from trusted adults. Through the development of self-management and responsible decision-making, girls learn how to regulate their emotions and think through their options when they encounter harm. So these skills are practiced in, they're practiced in different ways. We do reflections in club, we have games, we do role plays, a number of activities where girls get to practice these skill sets. And that way, when they face difficult situations outside of club, they have some tools that they can use to respond. And the change is measurable. So across Glow Clubs, we see clear improvements in girls' confidence, leadership, and self-advocacy within the first year of their participation. So in one of our sites in Uganda, an evaluation of 209 girls found that significant growth across all measured socio-emotional and leadership capabilities after their first year in programming. And Aksa, you mentioned the social norms when you were talking. We also see changes beyond the girls themselves. So in one of our sites in India, the share of parents who hope their daughters would continue education beyond secondary school increased from 23% to 96% after their first year of Glow Club. So for us, it shows that when girls can develop that voice and confidence and agency, that the norms around them can begin to shift because they usually take what they learn in club, share it with other friends and their families as well. So we're seeing that in our evaluation data as well. You asked about safe spaces and how they support justice seeking for girls. Safe spaces are, they provide the environment where girls feel vulnerable enough to open up. And I think the question really is like, what actually makes a space safe for girls? And in safety, it doesn't happen by accident. It's very intentionally built. So in Glow Clubs, that foundation is laid from the very beginning, where girls walk through a process of establishing their shared agreements about confidentiality, respect, and listening without judgment. Mentors, who are women from the community where Glow Clubs take place, are trained to not simply teach, but to facilitate in ways that protect emotional and physical safety. So they guide discussions very carefully, and they respond, appropriately if difficult experiences are shared in the environment. And they also ensure that no girl is pressured to speak before she's ready. So at the center of this approach, it's a very powerful principle that girls have decision sovereignty. So their lives are not something that other people decide for them, but they get to choose when and how they participate. And I think that's important to call out too, is that we don't decide what is important to them. They decide what they want to act on. And so moving forward, I just think that they get a chance in this safe space to develop their voice. And then the question is like, well, what turns the voice from the safe space into action? And that's the supportive relationships. So those supportive relationships exist with their mentors in the club, as well as their fellow club members who help them and often stand with them when they're ready to take that action. So I think my time is getting close, but I will just say in closing, when girls develop that power within, which is the confidence and self-awareness to understand their experiences, and they recognize that something is wrong, then they experience their power with, which is the safety of that supportive environment and supportive peers and mentors. They find the courage to speak. And finally, girls step into their power too, which is the ability to act on their voice, and they begin challenging injustice in their communities. And that's where access to justice truly begins. Thank you.
Ria, you're muted.
Thank you. I just wanted to thank all the participants and thank Adrian and just say that today's conversation reminds us that building justice systems that truly work for girls require change at many levels, be it policy, legal, structure, social changes, global platforms, and most importantly, investments we make in girls' own leadership and confidence. But to help us bring all these reflections together and look ahead, I am honored to invite and very thankful for Miss Ines to accept this request and honor us with the closing remarks. She is founding partner at Inkwell Education Law, and she is a bilingual education law specialist with expertise in special education, disability law, and equity-centered policy. She serves as a strategic advisory board member for Global Girls Glow, supporting efforts to expand opportunity and access to girls worldwide. So, with not taking any more time, the floor is yours, Ines.
Thank you so much. Good day, everyone. To Crystal, Ria, and Adrian, just thank you so much for building this space. Even just a digital space for us to be together is really meaningful. And to our inspiring panelists, Aksa, Mariam, Garima, your expertise truly, I love that it gave us not just analysis, but again, a map, a concrete thought about what the steps are moving forward. And of course, to the girls, not gonna lie, girls, I love girls. It was such a privilege hearing you speak today and just so inspiring. Thank you so much for, again, sharing your roadmaps. Alima, Chandini, Christiana, Rani, Drasilla, you guys nailed it. You are the reason that this room exists. This is why we are here. And I know, at least for me, and I bet you for everybody here, you really changed every person in this room a little bit today. Just having the courage and the strength to share your thoughts. And so I am sending up lots of little applause and emojis to let you know that you've really impacted us. And we're not in the room physically together, but I want you to feel that through internet land, because we are impacted and affected by you being here. And to all the young people watching right now, really, these last closing remarks are aimed at you and where you fit in this puzzle. I thought maybe I'd start by sharing something about where I come from. I live in Los Angeles now, but I grew up in an Argentinian household because that's where my family is from and that's where I was born. And in my Argentinian household, there was a lot of messages that were shared, spoken and unspoken, that girls had a very specific lane, a very narrow one. And you stayed in that lane, you were obedient, you were helpful to the household. And I was told in ways big and small, like I imagine many of you were, that the world just wasn't really built with me in mind. My household was sexist. We say machista in Spanish. And it was very clear in this kind of very traditionally patriarchal household that there were clear ideas about what girls were supposed to do, what we were supposed to want, what we were supposed to say or not say, and frankly, what we were supposed to come. I didn't really fit those ideas at all. Call me feisty, call me, as we say in the US, a black sheep, call me a contrarian, frankly, call me a dissident if you want. I wear that label very proudly. But I honestly just never believed that I was limited because I was a girl, despite my father's constant comments to the contrary, and my brothers liked to chime in. There was something inside of me that, at least for me, just was always there that told me otherwise. I was not less than. And that little voice inside, and I know some of our panelists referenced that, it is there. There was a little voice, like a little kernel, a little nugget, a little something. And I always called it my little acorn. So when people, even just family members, focus on what you can't do, they're sometimes blind to all the things that you can do. And sometimes that means we can fly under the radars in ways that allow us to grow when nobody is paying attention. So, at least personally, I took that fire and that desire to prove my household wrong, and I studied. I studied really hard. I was really good at school, and I put all my efforts there. And I became a lawyer. I'm really proud to be fighting for children today whose schools have failed them, whose systems have failed them, and frankly, whose governments have failed them by providing a quality education. So, not a long time ago, a young client of mine that I was representing, she was a foster youth that I was advocating for, drew a picture of me while we were doing an interview together. She was just doodling. And she drew me in my brown suit. I actually hated that suit, to be honest. It was like super itchy and uncomfortable, but that was the only clean thing that I had to wear. So I wore it. But anyway, that little girl immortalized me in that itchy brown suit in the most glorious chocolate colored crayons that she was playing with during our interview. And importantly, she told her foster dad that one day she wanted to be a lawyer. I want you to sit with that for a moment and understand all that this kind of like scribbly briefcase dawning drawing meant, because that little girl who was my client didn't actually know that women could wear suits at all, regardless of their cover. She didn't know that women could wear suits. She didn't know that they could have a profession. She didn't even know that women could work outside the home because she'd never seen that before. So when we had our interview, she didn't just see a lawyer, she saw a possibility. She saw a road that she did not know existed until she saw somebody walking it. And that is the power of visibility. That's the power of being in the room. And that's what representation does. It doesn't only inspire, it actually unlocks. And that's why it's so important that you guys are here in the room today, being those girls in their itchy brown suits, showing others everything that is possible. So here's what I've learned doing legal advocacy. Regardless of what I thought when I was younger, I know now change doesn't begin at the top. It begins exactly in the rooms that we are sitting in today. It begins when you tell your mother, then your father, then your school, then your town, then your city, then your government, then the world that you have something to say. And today you've said it so beautifully, so many of you. Every girl in this room, every girl watching, from Lagos to Lusaka, Chennai, Juba, you're not waiting to become something. You already are something. And that's why you have a right to have a voice. You are that acorn. And here is the miracle of that tiny little seed. The tree is already in there. It's already inside of you. Every proudly earned ring on that trunk, every strong branch of that tree, every healing leaf, it exists inside of you right now, just waiting for the conditions to let it grow. It's not something you need to go out and find. It lives within you. So your job, and frankly, our job, the people right here, is to fight for those conditions. And that's what I do as a lawyer every single day. And that's what so many of your panelists do. But our job as lawyers in fighting for those conditions, that's our obligation. The adults in the room, the governments, the institutions, the global partners, we owe that to you, the next generation. So we owe you systems that don't make you prove your pain before offering protection. We owe you courts and schools and clinics that are actually designed with you in mind, especially those of you who, are really often left out. Girls with disabilities, like the kinds that I serve every day, girls in conflict zones, and girls who speak languages that institutions refuse to learn. Especially those of you who shared your local languages today. I applaud you for being proud of them. And I hope that one day we are able to learn them all. We owe you adults who show up, not just to pass laws, as our panelists mentioned, but to actually implement those laws. Not just to make global commitments, but actually to follow those commitments home, into the local office, into the village, and into the classroom. We owe you a civil society that doesn't just speak about you, but hands you that microphone like we did today and actually trusts what you have to say. We trust you. We trust your voice. Your voice is beautiful, and thank you for sharing it today. So to put it plainly, what governments and institutions and global partners have to prioritize is this. Let's stop making girls translate themselves for systems that were never really built for them. Build the systems differently. Bring girls into the room where those systems are designed, but not as symbols or mere footnotes, but actually as architects of change and architects of their own futures. Make sure no girl is left at the margins because of where she lives, because of who she loves, or because of how much money her family has. Because, equity is not a luxury. It is the whole darn point of what we are trying to do. And that's why young people like you, who refuse to let the world forget its promises, youth like you are justice embodied. And that's why you inspire me, even as an adult. And that's why change starts at the bottom, not at the top. And every day I work, I'm reminded of that. So each of you has a tool. Maybe it's the law, like mine. Maybe it's a microphone, a platform, a paintbrush, a spreadsheet, a community meeting. Maybe it's your voice in a room where people, frankly, would rather that you stayed quiet. Find your tool is my call to action. Learn your specific, unique tool. Work hard to master it and then use it over and over again. Because the world doesn't really change because powerful people decide to change it. The world changes because girls like us, former girls, women, who were told to stay in their lane, just decided to build a new road. So I see you. Glow sees you, and I see that great oak that is already inside of you, blooming from that little acorn. So start blooming, start growing, and frankly, never stop. Never let anyone stop you, because it's already within you. So thank you so much for joining us today, and we're here to support you. And it's been a pleasure. Guys, good luck out there. We've got a lot of work to do, but we can do it.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Ines, for this powerful reflection and for inspiring all of us. And with that, I'll just hand it back to Muslima. Over to you.
Thank you to our amazing panelists for listening to girls and responding with care. Today, we showed that girls are not too young.
We are not invisible.
We understand the system.
And we know how to fix it.
Justice must be safe.
Justice must listen.
Justice must include girls. Thank you for being with us.
Let's continue building a world where every girl can seek safety without fear.
Thank you and goodbye.